Welcome boys and girls, Christine here with a discussion about Total War Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires, and about Legend of Total War. Because what's been happening over the last couple of days, from my perspective, it's the cumulative effect of many things that Creative Assembly has done over the years, and many things that the community of Total War has allowed to just kind of simmer beneath the surface. It's kind of like a volcano that finally has erupted on this subject for Legend, for the community, for the player base, and yes, it has blown up in CA's face. There's a whole lot of things to talk about with regards to what CA should do going forward. There will be a video coming up later today on that very subject, but I do want to talk about the context over here. If we look on Steam and we look at recent reviews, we can see very, very clearly how many people are deeply unhappy about the state of Total War. Reddit is on fire, Discord is on fire, social media in general is on fire, and Legend of Total War has decided to call it quits. I think it's the best decision Legend could make at this very moment. And the reason I say that is because he spent a lot of years, over a decade, covering Total War. He spent a lot more time playing Total War. It's a series he's deeply invested in. But here's the thing. He was always the kind of person, this is how he got so big, he was always the kind of person who was really pushing things to the max. Breaking the game, cheesing, highlighting issues, talking about those issues, showing players how they can win campaigns, and so on and so forth. Problem is, from my view, is that when you're in that situation where you're constantly highlighting issues of a game, of a series, you kind of want things to improve. And when they don't, and this is not just how Legend feels, but also how the community feels, otherwise things would have blown up. But when they don't, then that eventually builds up pressure, and that pressure releases the volcano. And I think that's what that is exactly what has happened right here for the community at large, not just Legend of Total War. I think it would be a big mistake for Creative Assembly to just think that this is going to blow over. I think it would be a big mistake for Creative Assembly next week to just release a hotfix on the AI issues of Lizardmen, release a trailer for Tides of Torment, and think that will blow over. No, that might be the straw that broke the camel's back with regards to Lizardmen AI, but it's not just Lizardmen AI. Lizardmen AI being broken as a result of a racial update / rework that Creative Assembly introduced is a symptom of a much deeper issue that people do have with Total War in general. So my view is you can patch that over, but if they think that they can just sweep it under the rug, I don't think it's necessarily going to go down in the best possible way for CA at this point. With respect to Legend, I understand exactly where he's coming from, and I've been talking with him since he's brought all of this up. And what I told him, I've been in this situation myself with World of Warcraft. Because the reason I got all these subscribers, or a lot of them, combination of things. Let's Plays on various games, several years spent covering World of Warcraft. I spent 16 years plus playing World of Warcraft, then covering it as a content creator, and I've also spent 20 years playing Total War, and several years of covering that fully on YouTube. The straw that broke the camel's back for me personally, with regards to World of Warcraft, well, I had played Warcraft since I was 6 years old, with Warcraft 1, then Warcraft 2, Warcraft 3, thousands of hours in Warcraft 3. In fact, I may have ended up playing more of Warcraft 3 than WoW. But I also played a lot of WoW. And the straw that broke the camel's back for me with regards to World of Warcraft was the gold selling, gold buying situation, the gold bid, gold DKP runs that had taken over Classic specifically. And I was not happy with that. I tried to highlight it, as I tried to highlight many issues, and Blizzard and the community didn't care. Eventually, Blizzard did improve things on that subject, but to this day, I have no interest in going back to World of Warcraft, because while certain things have improved, That was just a symptom of a bigger issue. I was not happy with the overall state of World of Warcraft, the raiding situation, the gameplay situation, the story, the social dynamics, the guild situation, so on and so forth. So it's not just one issue that drove me away from that. It's an accumulation of issues, and I do still think those issues do exist. A lot of them do exist. They may have gotten better, but just being better is not enough. And that's the same for Legend as well with Total War. Things, from my view, with Total War have been improving. Creator program, state of the game patches, etc. But like the community, who's now furious on Reddit and Steam reviews and so on, it's just not enough on that subject. For Legend, the straws that broke the camel's back is the current state of Total War, combined with what happened between him and CA. Things can end up getting better in Total War. I do believe that. I hope they do get better, but they also might not get better. And that's really a really bad situation to be in when you've invested so much time and effort, you've spent so many years on a particular IP, and people are telling you, oh, it's moving in the right direction, but you're not really feeling that. That's why I fully understand his feeling of relief now that he's finally decided to step away from it. Because you eventually have to draw a line, realize when it's just not going to go down the right path, or it's not going to be enough. Maybe he has forced a reckoning on Creative Assembly and the community, and he's helped blow up that volcano in a way that could actually end up being productive. Because if he had done nothing, if he had said nothing, done nothing, not engaged on this, not stepped away, let me tell you what I expected weeks before, months actually, before all of this happened. I expect that CA would just chug along with Total War Warhammer 3, release some content, some patches, but would never fundamentally fix the issues of the game. I was not happy about that, but I accept that. I accept that because I hope things will get even better with 40k. But that's where you gamble. That's where I'm gambling, and that's maybe where a lot of creators are gambling. Maybe that's even where a good portion of the player base is gambling. Those that aren't furious that they spent hundreds of dollars in Total War Warhammer, but those that just have accepted, okay, they're not going to do it, they're not going to fix it, but maybe they do better, right, with Total War in 40k. The problem with 40k is that I'm sure Creative Assembly is thinking that. I think from what they've said publicly, from what we've seen with patches, from what we've seen about the amount of resources that they've put on the game, the fact that it's taken almost a year for them to release the DLC, which is not out yet, that to me very clearly indicates all of those things. It clearly indicate that what CA wants to do is just keep things chugging along, and they're banking on 40k delivering for them in a major way. Because 40k Total War will not just be the current Total War base. It's not going to be hardcore Total War fans. Those people have played Total War long before even Warhammer 1 came out. Not just the Warhammer fantasy fans, but problem with 40k, they might be looking to rely on the 40k fan base. Problem with the 40k fan base and that mentality is if Creative Assembly treats Total War 40k in the same way that they've treated Warhammer 3 and Free Kingdoms and Pharaoh and other titles, it will make the Hyena situation seem like a picnic in comparison with regards to what ends up happening. Case in point, the example I can give, and the one I've given on my channel, has to do with what we saw happen when Games Workshop released the Codex Astartes under Matt Ward. That might not be something that people that aren't so invested in 40k may be aware about, but I'm sure if you bring up that situation to Games Workshop, they will literally flinch, because it was not a pleasant situation. It took them many, many years to recover from that disaster. And that disaster, let me be clear, was so monumental that would far eclipse even something like Concord, let alone Hyenas. That's not the situation games CA wants to deal with. It's not a situation Games Workshop wants to happen ever again, even if CA would be the one taking the fall. So hopefully, if there's any good that comes out of this, is that CA understands that they don't do this again. Ideally, they do improve Warhammer 3, and I think that they need to. I think if they don't do so, the current resentment that you're seeing exploding already on Reddit, on Steam, etc., is just going to get that much worse. And I would say this to CA directly, that they should avoid what they did back with Shadows of Change. We all remember Rob Bartholomew's letter. That was not a wise move. And of course, Rob Bartholomew wrote that letter, that blog, based on the premise that he expected, and CA expected probably, that Hyenas was going to be their next big game. If you want to make that gamble, CA, fair enough. You're gambling with 40k, you're thinking that's going to work out. Just remember what you already dealt with, and understand that it's going to get much worse if you screw it up again. That's all I had to say. Costine signing out. Stay tuned for more. There is more coming. I do want to make some videos on the subject on what the key issues are of Total War and what I would hope CA does actually improve on things.